I always look like, and I think a lot of my colleagues that think we always look like we're being very nonchalant about things. But behind the scenes, we've tried to look at every fact. We've tried to research every person in the room. We save client time, we save client negotiation grief, as I call it, because as I said to you, it's sort of like a moot court situation, right? When you have an adversary and you have two parties on different sides of the table, what you want to do is you want the best outcome. But you want the best outcome for yourself. What we always forget, communication is a two-way street, which means that if you want the best outcome for yourself, the other party wants the best outcome for themselves. And if they want the best outcome for themselves and they're going to constantly be fighting against you for that, you're never going to be in a position where you have a good outcome. What I would say is to have a really good outcome in any situation or any negotiation or any deal is you need to be a communicator who understands giving and getting. So you will never get everything. It's like a relationship, right? Like last time I asked any husband or wife, it isn't a one-way street. If one person is the one getting and the one person is always giving, there is going to be a breakdown of the relationship. It's the same thing in a communication situation. So there is definitely going to be a situation where you are not going to be able to move forward if you end up in a situation where you think you're communicating, but all you're doing is trying to get, not give. I'll give you an example. When we do share, sale, and purchase agreements, we have a list of warranties under those agreements. Those warranties are basically the seller telling the buyer that I'm warranting to you that all of these things in the company are okay. Now, there are a couple of fundamental warranties. Those are obviously title. So obviously, if I'm selling a company and you're buying my company, you need to know for a fact that I own the shares of my company and that I am giving you my shares. Their shares are not dummy shares, fake shares, or shares owned by someone else who I'm fronting. So those are called fundamental warranties. But there are a whole bunch of other warranties in share sale purchase agreements that are, for example, the fact that the company has paid all its taxes, the fact that, there are no environmental issues if you're a factory or a warehouse, and underneath your warehouse, if you have products that are either pollutant or oil and gas or restricted products that you're not contaminating the water table. Then there could be other things where you don't have any employment issues ongoing, you don't have any cases, you don't have any litigation cases ongoing and things like that. So all these factors are put into warranties. And then what typically happens is, like, for example, I had a deal in Africa where we ended up in a situation where the logistics and warehouse company that we were buying had some tax issues in Africa. So along with the warranties, which says we have no tax issues in any part of the world where we do business, they did have tax issues in Africa and they were waiting for adjudication from the tax authorities in a few East African countries. So for that, we have what we call indemnities. The indemnities are statements in an agreement, a share sale and purchase agreement, which basically say that I indemnify you should the government of, say, Tanzania come after you in respect of the tax liability that was created in my company at that time when you bought it. So I'm indemnifying you for a very finite and specific issue. Now, as lawyers, we tend to have a huge debate on indemnities. Sometimes it's a little bit of a legal debate where you have to give in as a seller because otherwise the buyer is just not going to take that risk. You have to mitigate the risk for the buyer, and that risk is quantifiable. Sometimes, like of course in the tax case in Tanzania, we didn't know how quantifiable it would be, but whatever the case may be. So you have to know that that is something you're going to have to give. Now, if you constantly spend 3 days battling over an indemnity that you have to give, otherwise the buyer is not going to buy the company and is going to be a dead dark deal or what we call a deal breaker, then there is no point in trying to hold on to your ego and carry on a communication for 3 days, wasting everybody's time and money. And that's sometimes why lawyers also get a bit of a bad name. I'll do a whole other podcast on lawyers, how to hire the right one and how to fire the right one. But I would end up in a situation where I would be the one who's sort of like the peacemaker in the negotiation, because sometimes you, as I said, you have to give to get, and if you want to get, you have to give. And that's just how life works, and that's just how communication works.